Hey, welcome back. This is Defender Tassie. My name's Scott, and this is March 8th, day 262 of the new shop project. It's been a little over a month since I gave you an update, and lots going on. We got real busy. One of the things we were trying to focus on was a date of February 28th, which was the last day that I had to be out of the old shop without incurring a little more rent. And so we really tried to get a lot done before that move. And we're here weekend before last. We made that move, as you can see, with all the equipment that's in here around me. I'm going to give you a quick shot all the way around the shop. But today, as I promised you last time, we're going to focus on some tips that I want to give you on how to install this metal siding and ceiling. But to give you an idea, just a quick look around the shop. So that's where we're at. Start with on the metal. One of the things that I want to talk about is the screws. Now, the screws that you'll be able to get with these, I've had two different types. The contractor that built the building left a box of screws here that had a white head, which I'm kind of confused about because they didn't do any white, any kind of white trim or siding or anything of that nature. But either way, they left a bag here, and they had a different tip. And I think you'll see on this one that it's got kind of a drill bit built on the tip. And this is the screws that I bought from the supplier of the metal on the inside of the building. And what I found with these was that a couple of things. You had to have a good driver, and what we found were these DeWalt drivers that have a magnet in them that has a little slide. And that slide allows you, so if you get metal chips or something of that nature, you can move that magnet forward and clean that tip off. And that's not as much important as it is a good fit. And these have a good tight fit with the head. What I started with was one that had a little looser fit, and just had all kinds of trouble, because when you're doing this, you're trying to hold the ceiling up and drive the screw at the same time. And these screws that have the drill bit type tip will have a tendency to walk on you, just like a drill bit. And the other screws, the ones that the guy built a building that he had, they didn't have the same type of a tip. They had just more of a pointed tip. They were a little harder to get started, but once they were easier to hold in position. So you're probably not going to be able to pick what screws. Your supplier is probably going to have one kind of screw, but if you do have a choice, I prefer the other style of screws. Another thing that I wanted to show you, and I'm going to move the camera, and we're going to look down. I got a couple samples of the siding. Now, this siding has got two ends on it. One edge, the rib, comes down and has a flange, as you can see right here. Now the other side of the siding does not. Now, there's no instructions on how this is to be installed, and so the way I installed the ceiling, which I thought was correct, and we'll talk about the logic, was I put the flange area over top of the previous rib. And my thoughts was that that would provide a more finished look. But the problem with that is that there are places where you have literally 4 pieces of this metal that overlap each other. And what happens is this piece ends up not fitting well, and then you have a shadow line right here. Whereas if you do it this way, then this section tends to tuck up tight against, wherever you're at, whether you're down here or whether you're up here, and it eliminates that shadow line. So, and I'm assuming that's the correct way to do it. When we did the walls, I went back and did it this way, as opposed to this way, and I like the outcome a lot better. So your results may vary. Another thing, this material is not very consistent, even from end to end of the panel, and I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure whether it's because they shear the panel and it kind of flattens out, but one end of the panel is wider than the other end of the panel. Now this may only be an eighth, a quarter of an inch, something of that nature, and it's not hard to work with if you know what's going on. But what happened was when we started the first row, we ended up, the first piece was in line, and then as it went, it kept that difference in length started stacking, so the pieces started getting crooked. Now, ultimately what we ended up doing was knowing that one end was wider than the other, and we just ended up compensating for that, and it doesn't work out too bad. But let me pick up the camera and I'll show you even, and I don't know if you've ever put up any, say like paneling in a house, and they tell you to buy one extra sheet. So if you screw a sheet up or you miscalculate, you've got more. Better to have one sheet and take it back, because what happens is the color runs off. And so if you got to go back and buy another sheet, and you buy a sheet that's on the next stack or 50 sheets away, then the color's not the same, and you put it up and you can tell, hey, that sheet doesn't look like the other sheets. Well, even the spacing on the ribs, and let me show you what happened. If we look up here into this corner, and you look at the ceiling, and you look at the ribs on the vertical parts of the wall, you can see that the ribs pretty well line up on over here. But as we progress down this wall, you can see that now it's farther and farther off until we get down to the corner, and shoot, that's probably 2 to 3 inches off. And that's, I'm not sure how to explain, why that is. You would think, I mean, all this metal came from the same supplier, but it came from 2 different batches. I called and ordered all of the ceiling, and then once we had the ceiling up and I was ready to do the walls, I calculated what I was going to do on the walls, and then called and ordered that, and went down and picked it up as a different batch. So that being said, my recommendation would be, if you're going to do a section of wall, well, the fact is, a wall doesn't matter so much, but like a ceiling does, because on a wall you're probably just going to do 1 row, but like on the ceiling there's 5 rows of material. And so if you were to order half of the ceiling and then go back and order it, your rib spacing may not be the same, and so now you're trying to line up the ribs with, I mean, you can see this side wall, the ribs were not going to line up with what was on the ceiling. And like I said, it doesn't matter in this case because it's in a corner. But if you were going to do part of the ceiling and then do the next part a year from now, I would say you'd have some real difficulty in getting material that was going to actually match up. Something else that we did, that we came back to do, we did, the rafters are on 4-foot space. We did a single screw per rib when we first installed all the material. And what we found was, and part of this is because of the way I overlapped it, and should have overlapped it the other direction, was that, well, I think it wouldn't have mattered, because at the ends where you can see, and I'll point you up here, and I don't know whether you can, how well it's going to show up on camera. From this direction in the shop, you can see all of the ribs, or all of the joints. But we put double screws at all the seams so that it would pull up tighter, and where you can still see a shadow line because it is overlapped, and that's inevitable. We minimize that by using 2 screws at the joints. Now in the field, there's just a single screw per rib, which means that every sheet, which is 4 ribs or 3 foot wide, there's going to be 4 screws. On the ends, there's going to be double. Something else that we did as well, I'll point you around here and let you look. The bottom closure on that siding is called rat guard, and I assume it's so that rats can't crawl up through the ribs. But the cross section looks like this. What we did when we installed that on the side, because it did run off from top to bottom, was we left the rat guard off the bottom. That was the very last thing we put up, and actually came back at the end and slipped it up underneath and then put it in. But we had to compensate for the difference in width. You know, by the time we did a dozen sheets, we had a pretty good idea. And what we would do is we would do like the top right-hand screw in a sheet, and then we knew the bottom was narrower than the top, so then we'd get the middle screw in, and then we would pull the sheet over as tight as we could and put the outside screw on the middle row, and then come back to the top. And sometimes we'd use a level and plumb that side, but after we did so many, we kind of knew that we then kind of push the top over 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, something of that nature, and then finish screwing it. And you know, this stuff is not super flat. I mean, you know, when you pick a sheet up, you know, it bows, like you can see this offcut. And so once the screws are all in it, it sets flat. You don't have to you don't have to worry about the sheet buckling. It you know, if you pull that center tight and then shove the top over a little bit, the screws along the top are going to pull all that back flat. Unless I can think of anything else after I get the camera shut off. Hey, one little addendum I want to slip in to yesterday's video. When we started putting up this metal ceiling in here, I had 4 guys, and we were kind of horsing up a piece at a time. These sheets of metal on the ceiling were 13 feet long, and it's not a real big deal for one guy to pick one of those pieces up. But you know, to get them, you know, 14-foot ceilings in here was quite a chore. And we put in, I don't know, probably 2/3 of a row, and then we quit for the day. And I kind of thought about what we were doing and looked into other alternatives. And here's what we ended up doing. What I bought is this is and I hate to admit that I bought something from Harbor Freight, but this is a drywall lift from Harbor Freight. Now, I don't know that I'd put a sheet of drywall on it, definitely not a 12-foot sheet of drywall on it, but these sheets of metal were definitely lighter than drywall. Now, this lift only goes to 11'5". So what I ended up doing was fabricating an extension that went between the head and the first section of mast. Now, what that meant was that this lift ended up being about 3 foot taller than what it is right now. And to combat that, what we did, I had the metal on the trailer, and so what we do is roll this up to the side of the trailer and then climb up on the trailer and then load this a sheet of metal on top of this. But then you know, the way these work, you just crank this handle, and the thing rises up. And boy, it really helped. If I were going to do it again, I don't think I would try. Definitely not on 14-foot ceilings. You know, maybe on something low like 8 or 9 foot, you might do it like you would drywall with a dead man or something. But with 14-foot ceilings high up as we were in the air, this is definitely a go-to piece of equipment. So, all right, back to the video. I think that'll probably do it. We've still got some more of this siding to put up, but like I said, we wanted to get the main part of the shop here completed so that we could get the equipment in here and not have to move equipment around to finish any of this stuff. So, hey, listen, I'll here in the next couple of days, I'll go ahead and do another update and show you the balance of what we got completed up to date and what we're going to do here in the coming days. So, hey, listen, thanks for watching. Don't forget, get questions, comment, and if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe. So, hey, see you in the next update. Thanks.